You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 68. If you're in need of an entrepreneurial pep talk, you're in the right place. So grab a comfy spot and join me and my guest, Kacia Fitzgerald, as we chat about honoring your gut feeling, the power in trying something new to help you figure out what you do like and what you don't. We also dive into finding our purpose, how to build our confidence, and how we can achieve our goals. This is a jam-packed episode with so much goodness, and it's topped with such incredible and inspiring energy. I hope you enjoy our chat as much as I did. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am honored to be joined by Kacia Fitzgerald. She is an ex-corporate professional turned online coach, business mentor, and podcaster. She is obsessed with helping women take purpose-driven action toward building a life that they really love, which I am obsessed with myself. So welcome, Kacia. I'm so honored to have you as my guest, and I am so excited to learn all about your story and your advice and experience. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. I am so pumped to be here and just hopefully share some insight and tips about all the ups and downs of just this crazy life. So, backstory, I actually grew up kind of thinking that I should follow this really typical pattern of, go to school and get the degree, get the job, climb the corporate ladder, get married, have 2.2 kids, buy a house, that whole shebang. And I think a lot of societal standards kind of put this timeline on us of like how we're supposed to do things. But in my gut, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I always had a gut feeling. And I used to, like, back in the day, sell like Huckleberry jam on the street corner when I was like 7 and sell bracelets in school. And I've always had that in me, but I just didn't know what to make of it. So because we're often a direct reflection of the expectations of our peer group, I did what all my friends did. I did go to college and I got the job and I got a great job and I started working my way up, and all of these things I was checking off, on this list of what I thought would make me happy, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And I was really confused by that because so many of my girlfriends felt really excited about the path that they were on, and I just felt like something was missing and I didn't know what it was. So, because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, I decided that at the time I was working as a project manager at an IT company in downtown Seattle. And I decided if I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, then I'm going to at least focus on one area that was bothering me. And at the time, it was that in the corporate world, I had put so much emphasis on trying to climb the ladder and prove myself in an environment that was predominantly men that were like 20 years older than me. I decided that I'd work on my health and fitness goals because they had been put on the back burner. So I stumbled into this opportunity with Beachbody, which is a company that makes the programs like P90X, Insanity, a bunch of fitness programs, and it's a network marketing company. Stumbled into that by accident, ended up starting to build that as a side hustle. Ended up then moving from Seattle, where I was living with girlfriends at the time and my then boyfriend of 4 years, to New York City for him to go to NYU Dental School, me to get my dream job at Google, to continue to build that side business up past a full-time corporate income, leave the corporate world in April of 2015. And now we live in San Diego. After he graduated, we were like, we can live wherever we want. What do we want to do? We moved to San Diego. So now that boyfriend of mine is now my fiance. We've been together for 11 years and we have a dog, Lizzie. I have a top-rated personal development podcast, and I still have that network marketing business, although it's not my main focus anymore. And I am building out a new company with a personal development community, podcasting course, and all sorts of cool things. So that's kind of the lay of the land.
Wow. I love that. And I love that you were a PM because I was a project manager too. It wasn't for an IT company. I was more so on the business side, but I did work very closely with the IT department because projects always involved systems and then the business side as well.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. And I always felt like there was something missing as well. I was always trying to, climb that corporate ladder and take myself to the next level, starting out as a project coordinator and things like that. But that's so crazy that you started like that as well.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I say like wanted more, it's like I don't mean more as in if your job or like your job does actually bring you fulfillment and climbing that ladder does bring you fulfillment because I actually have a lot of friends that does and they're super happy in that achievement system and in that environment. But for me, more actually just meant what felt more right to me. And I was
Mhm.
catching myself kind of, I mean, and you can connect with this, just even interfacing with IT. It's like I am a very bubbly, super outgoing, like crazy extrovert, Enneagram 7, like I'm like that all the time. And I was, shoving myself down into this box and kind of watering down my personality to fit into what I thought I should be in that role. And I thought maybe there would be a way that I could be more me and I could feel more fulfilled in my career path, but I didn't know what that was. And I thought maybe if I was an entrepreneur and I worked for myself, that could be how I could get that fulfillment. And I had no idea where the path was going to take me, but I honored that gut feeling that often we want to like push down because I thought that maybe that was an opportunity in disguise to kind of look at rather than just trying to shove it down and think that I shouldn't feel this way or I should just be happy, which I think so often we do when we have these things on paper that we think we should be happy with.
Totally. Now, when you started your fitness business, becoming an entrepreneur with that, and now shifting into personal development more so, do you feel like you needed to start with that to kind of figure out that this is now the direction you wanted to go into?
Yeah, I would have never guessed that because I didn't know obviously what was coming, but um Steve Jobs has a quote that you can connect the dots looking backwards. And so now I can connect the dots and I can say, well, of course I had to do that because what I learned by especially building a network marketing business, because network marketing businesses have a lot of stigma. And because I was able to do it in a way that was really fun for me and just really put myself out there and do something that I would have never done. And I was so scared what people were going to think about me. And I was so worried about other people's opinions. But day one, I really felt successful in that business simply because I did something that I wanted to do, even though I was scared to do it and didn't think that I was qualified to do it. And I didn't feel ready to do it. And that pattern helped me build confidence. And now every single day, I've built up on that confidence from starting that, which was back in 2014 when I started that. And it took me on this path towards like a little bit more self discovery, a little bit more self awareness, getting focused on personal development, getting obsessed with podcasts to the point that I wanted to launch my own a year and a half ago. And, it's taken me down all these pivots and twists and turns that I couldn't have predicted then. But I'm so grateful for the woman that I was, the girl that I was at 24 years old who was willing to start that because now 30-year-old version of me is like, hell yes, girl. Like you were so freaking scared and look at what you did for your future self because you were willing to do it anyway. So I think I had to take that path because I wasn't confident enough to build my own thing. And what's cool about the network marketing structure is like you're essentially a representative for other products that you don't have to create versus now stepping into this actual like pure entrepreneur space like I did in January when I launched my new company. I'm creating the products and it feels like you're in a sea, which you can probably connect with, of like you could do anything. It can feel
Mhm.
overwhelming. But that taught me how to trust my own intuition and be really confident in my own path.
I love that journey so much. And I can definitely relate to that because I started with what I thought I wanted to do way back when I started this blog. And it's the journey and the process that you take through creating that business and everything that you learn along the way that it teaches you so much more about yourself. And you kind of take that path and you figure out exactly what your true purpose is. It's like a path that you need to take to figure
Yeah.
yourself out sometimes.
For sure. And it's really interesting that just made me think of so often we want things like Amazon Primed, right? Like we want it like right now. And I think of even the big dreams that I have, like eventually I'd love to write a book one day. And I think about all this company that I want and how many employees I want and this personal development community, all these things that I think about. But I'm like, if I actually got that today, I actually couldn't handle it yet. I'm not the woman that could manage that size of a team or that many eyes on me, or, often we want it so quickly, but I'm like, I needed the path, and I need the path that I'm on now, which means I'm going to need to fail and get back up. I'm going to need to make some missteps. I'm going to need to, just have some more juicy content for my book from like screwing up a little bit more and having some more experience here to write the type of book that I'd want to write. So it's all working for us. And it's such a beautiful gift to give yourself when you realize even the crappy stuff is serving you, even those times when you don't know what the right next step is, like that's still all working for you if you're looking for it. Because whatever you're going to look for, you're going to find. And so I think you and I both share that commonality, and hopefully some of the listeners do too, of like, that intentional effort of like following your own intuition and just kind of trusting that you're going to figure it out and defaulting to that ability of like, I can figure this out. So I'm just going to keep taking the next best step, not trying to rush the process of getting where I want to go.
Exactly. So I want to know what you think for those that are feeling lost. They're, searching for clarity on what that purpose is, what direction they should be taking. What is the best way to find that?
I mean, I think you have to try things on for size, and it's so interesting because if you were to take inventory of your own calendar, like if you were to open up your calendar, obviously right now, depending upon when this is released, right now it's COVID season. So maybe you don't have as hefty of a social calendar as usual. But if you were to take inventory of your calendar, when is the last time that you did something for the first time? When are you exposing yourself to other people's ideas? Because if you're having the same, commute to work, having the same conversations with coworkers, hanging out with the same people on the weekend, doing the same things over and over again, and expecting that you're going to come up with some miraculous idea just falling in your lap, you're going to feel let down. You're going to continue to feel stuck, which means you're going to have to try things on for size, because learning that you don't like something is also really powerful. And learning, I actually was just having a conversation with a girlfriend yesterday who's getting out of a nasty breakup. And I'm like, at least you know the things that you want now and the things that you don't want. And that's going to serve you too. Because now moving forward, you know the things that are just like non-negotiable and the things that you wish that you had more of. And the same rules apply to our career. And just having this like curiosity lens of like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this, but at least I'm going to learn if I like it or I don't. And it might take me down a path or introduce me to a person that could connect me to something else. And just having this curiosity lens feels so freeing and helps you not feel stuck, because you're taking intentional effort to expose yourself to all of the amazing things that are going on in the world that we might often have delivered to us in an unexpected package. Like, I would have never expected that I would build a network marketing business and that would go on to earn well over 7 figures. And I would speak on these massive stages. I spoke on stages like 15,000 people in that industry. And I would have never expected that. And if you would have told me, Keish, like, this is what you're going to do, I would have said, there's no way. But I honored that gut feeling and used happiness and fulfillment as a compass and just kept starting before I felt like I knew what I was doing. And I learned, and then I just kept moving.
I love you. So like amazingly said.
Thank you.
That kind of leads me into my next question about environment. You talked about relationships, the connections, the people that you're hanging out with and whatnot. How important is our environment in our life and the impact that it can have on the success that we have? Whether it's our relationships, our workspaces, anything that's surrounding us in our daily lives.
Oh my gosh, everything. And I think the two biggest influential ones for me personally, and I think for a lot of women, is number one, the thoughts that you're thinking, because you are the only person that you're going to live with for forever. And the thoughts that you're thinking control the perception that you have on the world, the behaviors and the actions that you take. And that's what you're constantly living with every day. And then, of course, you become a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group. So if your peer group is really comfortable being comfortable and you're really growth minded, you've got to get people in your ecosystem that make you want to step up your game. And that's so important, which is why I'm obsessed with cultivating like female communities, because I just think it's so powerful when you get really intentional about the people whose ideas that you're consuming. And for me, I learned a lot from mentors from afar, which is why I'm obsessed with podcasting and why I'm so excited to be on this, just knowing that we can be connecting with people all across like the world. Someone's listening to us in the shower right now. Like, that's so crazy. And I think it's just really powerful to know that consuming other people's thoughts is going to shape your perception of the world. So, I think we have to get really intentional about the environment that we're creating in our heads. And it's interesting because a lot of us think that happiness comes from external circumstances, right? Like when I arrive at this thing, I'll be happy. But I'm obsessed with positive psychology and I've studied it a ton. And 50% of your happiness is genetics, 40% is based off of your perception, the thoughts that you're thinking, and the beliefs that you create. And only 10% is external circumstances, which means you are so much more in control of if you're happy and fulfilled and excited and enthusiastic, regardless of your gene pool and regardless of what's going on in the world around you, because 40% of that you can control. And then I would argue if you control your thoughts and your perception, that you can also control your perception of that 10% of your external environment. So it's everything in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Now I like thinking about that. That's so true,
Yeah.
right? Like 40% you have complete control over. And I think we need just to focus like so much more on that 40% because that impacts like everything else.
Yeah. And it's funny because you go out into the world, like I perceive the world to be so much happier than a lot of other people do. And that's because I smile at strangers. Like I'm the creeper that says hi in the elevator. You know, like right now with everyone wearing masks and stuff, it's a little bit weird. But like I say hi and I smile at strangers, which means people smile back at me. So that means I perceive the world to be happier. I intentionally don't watch a lot of news. In fact, I actually right now in this season don't watch any news. I unfollow people that are complaining about crap all the time or are negative. I get myself out of group texts where people are just spiraling downwards. Like I'm so intentional about my environment in that regard too, my external environment, because I understand that that's something that I can control is certain parts of my perception of the world. So when we take that responsibility and the finger that we often want to point on other people or external circumstances to create this happiness, and we point that back at our finger or that finger back at ourselves and we say, what can I own here? Gosh, that is a gift to give to yourself and to the world.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love that you're talking about mindset because I think mindset is like absolutely critical. And I think one thing that we all really struggle with when we are becoming an entrepreneur is the imposter syndrome.
Yep.
And, not even at the start, it happens like throughout your entire journey.
Oh, yeah.
And like for now, I'm working on like, I've already announced the launch of a coaching program and I'm working on the details of it. But this whole last week, I was like totally having imposter syndrome where I was like, am I even good enough? Is anybody even going to benefit from this? Is what I'm putting out valuable? Like, are people going to want to even pay for this? Are they going to ask for refunds? Like,
yep.
Totally having this whole mindset around that, and then seeing like what everybody else is doing and all these programs that they're offering and like what they're charging, and I'm like, I don't feel like I can even charge close to that. Like,
yeah,
just putting myself down so much for like no good reason. And I think so many of us do that to ourselves. So how do we avoid letting that get the better of us? How do we use our competition to propel us to success?
Yeah. Ooh, this is such a good question. And I love your honesty about that because I think it would be so straight. A lot of times we want to escape this imposter syndrome, but imposter means you don't feel like you belong, but that's also because you've never done it. Like imagine if you sat down at your like the first day of a new job and they're like, "Okay, here's your stapler, here's your computer logins, go get them." You would be like, I don't know what I'm doing." And in the corporate world, that would be acceptable because you would need to get training. Like your manager would need to tell you what to do. Like it would be, you need to learn who like Karen in HR is. Like you need to do all of that. And you give yourself that grace to learn in a corporate structure. But then as an entrepreneur, there's no rule book. Nobody's going to sit down and tell you, here's your computer logins, your stapler, and your training manual. You just have to go. And some people, I think, get this imposter syndrome when they have this expectation that they're going to be good at something that they've literally never done before. But you have to suck a little bit before you get better. You have to feel like you have no idea what the hell you're doing so that you can then progress through that and build confidence. And what helps me a lot with navigating imposter syndrome, and then I'll touch on comparison because I think I kind of treat them differently in my brain. But the imposter syndrome really to me just comes from confidence. And I like to think of confidence like a bucket. And it's funny because whenever people are like, they often explain confidence like you arrive at confidence. Like, oh, she's so confident. I wish I was as confident as her. Like, no, like you don't just arrive at that. Like you have to work at that. Just like you don't like, eat a salad and do one ab workout and you have like six pack for the rest of your life. Like you have to show up and build confidence. So when I think of it like a bucket, I think of building confidence by keeping promises to yourself puts a deposit into your bucket. And every single time that you show up and you win the day and you keep a promise to yourself, you're putting those deposits in. So then naturally, as you start to build more confidence, then when you go into situations that you've never done that thing before, or you've never been on that stage, or you've never been in that room or at that table or in that meeting or whatever it may be, you still can rely on this bucket full of confidence that you've built in your ability to keep going through unfamiliar situations. And I think often, even if someone like gives us negative feedback, it's kind of like if you picture an actual bucket full of like something sloshy like water, right? Like you get hit on the side of your bucket when someone says something negative or like digs at your ego, and just a little bit of your confidence like flops out of your bucket, but you still have some in there because you've been building it so consistently, because you've made it a habit to daily show up and keep promises to yourself and keep building confidence. So then when you arrive and you feel like an imposter, you just recognize that just means that you're leveling up. Like you're growing because you're going to be doing things that you've never done before. So you have to welcome that and learn to dance with it rather than trying to say, I'm an imposter, I don't belong. It's like, hold on, let me default to remembering that I've built up all this confidence. Let me default to remembering that I've done things that were hard before, things that I didn't think I could handle that I did. Let's remind myself of that. And then let's keep on going, because that's what it feels like to grow. It doesn't feel like rainbows, butterflies, and happy little unicorns all the time, but it feels like making progress. And that's where that imposter comes in of like, what are they going to think? It's like, well, they're going to think that they feel the same way. The people that you're worried about, what they think of you, they're worried about what everyone else thinks of them too. So we're all on this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's imposter syndrome. And then comparison, I have a really interesting like take on that in my own head, where I really don't struggle too often with comparison in a negative way. I definitely compare myself to other people because we're humans and we want to belong. That's how we're wired. But when I look at someone else who's doing the thing that I want to do, I look at them as either they've had more experience, so that means they've probably failed more times than I've tried. They've been physically on the planet more or in this space longer, so they've just had more at-bats, more reps, right? Or they are proof of what's possible and that the market actually needs it. And I want to clap for them because they're showing me what's possible. If they can do it, then I can do it too, because it's never been done by me. And so I have to take my spin on it. And I even think about that when we launched our podcasting course with the new company. I was like, there's so many podcasting courses out there, like, but none of them have been done by me. So what would be my like chicka chicka remix on a podcast course? Right. And I like think about that all the time. I'm like, what would my version of this be? I'm like, oh, well, I would do it with a small group mastermind. Like I would do it where you get to interact with other women that are launching podcasts. Like, I thought about my take on it, and then I just created what I wish existed because it didn't exist yet. And I just love comparison for the sake of like other people that have done the thing that you want to do are literally showing you that it's possible and that the market needs it. So now all you get to do is go do your remix on that, because some people are going to connect with you that won't connect with that other woman that was doing it because of your unique story and experience.
I love that. That's so good. That's such great advice, and it's such a great way to look at it as well.
Yeah, I just think often we get sucked into comparing our like behind the scenes, like no makeup, you have like, just like no bra on, you just like feel like I like feel like a hot mess, and you're comparing yourself to this like Instagram blogger who has like some fan that's not pictured, that's like her hair's blowing in the wind and she has this like off the shoulder sweater and she's talking about her perfect marriage and her $1 million business. And you're like, ah! But it's like, let's be real here. Let's be educated, smart women and understand there was probably 800 million pictures that went into that. We have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know what's actually going on in her life, but we know what's going on in ours. So let's look for the things that we can be proud of ourselves for. Let's look at other people who are doing that thing that we want to do and clap for them for paving the way. And then let's figure out our unique perspective on that thing. Look at taxis and Uber, right? Like, I mean, it's just most things are a remix at this point. So let's just keep doing that.
I love that. So when things don't go as planned, when people experience setbacks in any way, what are your thoughts on how they should handle them so that they're able to bounce back quickly? They're able to reset and just keep moving forwards.
Yeah, I love that you said bounce back quickly, because I really do think the biggest difference between successful people crushing their goals and the people that feel stuck is simply not that they don't fail, but they just get back up more quickly. And they take every single failure or setback and they look at it through the lens of, how can I grow through this? What can I learn here? What tool can I get from this for myself to put in my toolbox so that when I approach the next thing, I'm even better. I'm even more qualified. I'm even more ready. And for me, I just don't know how you learn if you don't have setbacks. Because if everything goes according to plan, you don't learn anything. Like everything that I've learned is when I'm mess it up and then I have to figure out how to fix it, right? Or like
Yeah.
I do something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Fingers crossed this works. And if it doesn't, then what can I learn here? So if you're experiencing a setback, I also think it is a disservice to your the future version of you if you don't let yourself experience the emotion. Because if you cared about it, it's okay to have an ugly cry, the kind where, your mascara and your snot combine together and they get in your mouth and you're like probably on a bathroom floor because that's where it always happens. Like, and you just are like, I suck. And like, do that. That's good for you. I think that's therapeutic. There's nothing like a good, ugly cry. But then remember, I only build resilience when I'm down and have to get back up. And resilience is the secret sauce of entrepreneurship. Resilience and enthusiasm. So how can you get yourself confident and excited about, in whatever version that is for you? It doesn't have to be an outgoing extrovert like type of way like me, but how can you get yourself excited about what you're doing and the work that you're putting into the world? And how can you get back up more quickly? The goal is not to not fall down. The goal is to get back up more quickly, but let yourself experience the emotion. So I let myself ugly cry, be irrational, say some crazy stuff, but I have a timer on it and then I get back up. What can I learn here? How can I grow through this? Why am I better because of this? And then I keep on going. And for any women that struggle with like negative self-talk around setbacks, a really powerful tool that I often talk about in my personal development community is the concept of like, what would you say to your best friend, to your sister, to your daughter, or to your future daughter if that same thing happened to her? And now take that advice and use it on yourself. Because so often we're so good at giving advice to other people and pumping other people up, but then we do the same exact thing that they did, and we think that we're failures. And we start to say these conditional statements like, I suck. And then our brain goes into self-confirming bias and starts looking for all the evidence to prove that statement to be true. And then we stay more stuck. We stay down longer. And the longer we stay down, it gets harder to get back up. So really, if you can master the skill of just getting back up, like life is going to be awesome because you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to keep getting better, and you're going to be so freaking inspiring because anyone that has anything like their whole life handed to them on a silver platter with this picture perfect Instagram and they never fail, I'm not inspired by that person. I'm not buying your book. Your book is boring. You're playing yoga. I want to hear about the girl that struggled. So you're writing a better story too.
I love that. Awesome. Oh, that's so good. Okay, so I want to go back to your entrepreneurial journey because I think there's just so much to learn there.
Yeah.
When you were working your job, did you also have the side hustle going at the same time? Or did you take that leap into going full time when you figured out you wanted to do the fitness entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So I built it completely on the side. And there's a lot of people, I feel like it's kind of split in the entrepreneurial space of like, jump and the net will appear. And I'm the opposite of that. I'm like, no, no, no. Build your side hustle and get to the point where you don't have to come from a desperation lens. You can build a really successful side hustle and then make a strategic decision to leave. Because to me, it was so worth it to build it on the side and still have my full time corporate income that I could count on, which meant short term sacrifices for long term massive gains. But I worked before and after work. I had those moments where I felt like I was like pushing a monster truck tire up a hill and doubted myself and wondered if it was ever going to work out. Those moments where you're crying and like squeegeeing off your glasses and you're just like, oh, like I suck. Like I had all of that stuff because I was building it on the side while I was working full time at Google in downtown New York City. I was working like 50 plus hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week and building my business before and after work. And it was definitely a sacrifice and I worked my freaking butt off. And when it got to the point where I was matching my income, I stayed 4 more months.
Wow.
And part of it was because I actually really liked my job, but the other part was I was supporting my fiance was at NYU dental school full time. So he had zero income and we were living in downtown New York City. So I was the one that was supporting us both financially. So I wasn't willing to risk that. Um, Not that I couldn't have done it with my business. I would have made it work regardless, like because I just believe in my ability to figure it out. But I just felt like I didn't need to. I was like, the opportunity cost got too big when my business was growing too much that I didn't have enough hours in the day left. And I think a lot of times we want to jump proactively because we're like, I don't like this job. This is not for me. I want to be happy. And I get that. But I'm so grateful because I didn't ever come at my business with this desperation lens. I didn't need people. Like I got to build it in a way that was really fun and fulfilling. And I got obsessed with the process rather than what the process could produce because I had that safety net of a 6-figure income while I was building it. So I'm such an advocate of the side hustle and multiple streams of income in whatever way that is, because I just think it's smart. You never know, like look at the economy right now. You never know what could happen. So I think it's really smart, especially in the online space, because that's protected. But I didn't leave before. And a lot of people preach that and I just don't.
I totally agree. I prefer having the main job until I'm ready to take that leap when the finances are equivalent or more than what my day job is bringing in.
Mm-hmm. And of course, everyone's so different in like where you're at in your life, and this is where I think it's really interesting when entrepreneurs do preach this like jump and the net will appear thing, but they're coming from the lens of like they're single and they're 25 versus a woman who's maybe 35 with 3 kids. And I mean, it's like everybody's situation is so different. If you're in a toxic work environment that literally you cannot handle it, maybe it's time that you find another job and then get really intentional about when you're going to build your business. What's actually going to move the needle forward? Are you doing business related things or are you doing business building things? And how can you get accountability to actually doing the things that you need to do to move the needle forward so you can get there faster? So it's more like ripping the Band-Aid, which means you might be working a ton for a little bit, but that's not going to be the forever. It's like seasons. And that's how I did it. Once I made the intentional effort that I was like, okay, I want this to be my full-time job, I was going to do what I needed to do. And for me, it took 14 months.
Wow.
And then after that, I was like, I'm out. And not from a bad way. Like I was out from like, this is too good. Like I'm giving up a really good life and I want a great life. And that's what it was for me.
I love that. Now, when it comes to goal setting, which I think for me is like super important.
Yeah.
How do you feel about goal setting? How do you suggest on defining the right goals for you so that you're actually able to achieve them?
Yes. Goal setting is everything, because as humans, we love growth, we love progress. And if you don't have something that you're working towards, you feel like you're just like floundering around. So, to the woman that feels stuck that might be listening to this right now, you might literally just be stuck because you don't have a goal. And it could be a small goal. It doesn't have to be an entrepreneurship related goal, but it could just be, I want to run a 5K or a half marathon, like something that you can feel and see that progress. Oh my gosh, that's like everything. So, I love that you brought this up. I personally have a framework that I use for goals that's setting purpose driven action goals. So I'll break it down real quick. Purpose is, so every time that I'm going to set a goal, I have to run it through this like filter essentially. Purpose is the what or the why. Like, why am I actually doing this? Because often I've found in my life that I've set goals that I thought I should set based off of what other people thought that I should want, or all of that, just like the timeline, society's expectations, mentors' expectations, other people in the same industry as me. And I was like, wait, I don't even want these goals. Like, why am I setting these goals? So I have to have the purpose first, and it's specific to me. That's the why. So, like, why are you actually doing this? And when you first ask yourself that question, you're probably going to get a pageant answer, which is like, I just want to help people. I just want to live my best life. What the hell is that? No, got to dig deeper. It's got to be juicier to the point that you feel like you could cry, because you're starting to think of who would benefit as a byproduct of you going for it, who would be harmed if you don't and you stay stuck. And you start to just really get to that deeper reason. So that's the purpose. That's the what, the why, like very intentional about what it is. Then driven is, how do I need to set up, back to your original question about environment, how do I need to set up the infrastructure of my life and the environment to stay driven towards that goal? Because so often we set a goal, but we just have the idea of what the goal is and we break it out into these amazing steps. But we forget that we're the byproduct of our peers' expectations, that we live in a household with someone who doesn't even know what our goal is, right? We have no accountability to it. We're not creating an environment, like we're not plugging into podcasts or doing the things that are going to keep our mindset right as we're achieving that goal and working towards it. So, what do you need as an individual to stay driven towards that goal? And most often, most humans, I would say probably 85% of humans, require some sort of accountability, which means the people that matter to you need to know why your goal matters to you too, especially if it's a significant other that lives under the same roof as you. So that's the driven part. And then the last part is action, which is kind of self-explanatory. But you actually have to map out the time that you're going to put the work in. And I've mentored thousands of entrepreneurs at this point in my career. And it's so funny when people tell me their goals. I'm like, okay, so when are you going to get that done? And they're like, well, I feel like I'm just going to get to it sometime. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you have to put it in your calendar. Like, when are you actually going to do those things to make you feel like you're making steps in the right direction? Because if you don't make progress, you're not going to feel fulfilled. And if you don't feel fulfilled, you're not going to get that momentum at your back. And momentum is everything when you're working towards goals. So you got to know the purpose, the what, the why, the real why, like the juicy why that you might be kind of embarrassed to say that could make you ugly cry. The driven, what's the infrastructure? Who needs to know about your goals? Who's going to hold you accountable? And then you actually have to do the work, because anything worth having in my book is worth working hard for. And nothing comes easy. You don't just fall into a 6-figure, 7-figure business. You don't fall into this like amazing marriage. You have to work at those things. But that's why it matters, because you get the fulfillment and the proud feeling that comes from working hard. Like, easy robs you of proud. So it's just so freaking important that you know why you're doing it, you know how to stay consistent, and then you actually just get your cute butt to work.
I love that. I love that you mentioned how important figuring out your why is, because I'm the same way. I think your why is what's going to get you to accomplish that goal. If you don't have a deep rooted connection to that why, it's not important to you, which means that you're not going to put in the time. You're not going to put in the actions. You're not going to do the work because there's no connection to it. There's no reason, like deep reason why you need to actually get it done.
Yeah, so true. And it's funny because what I do is kind of this like dance. When I think of my why, like obviously what I kind of just mentioned of like digging deeper into your why, of like why it matters to you. But for me, I also like to think about my macro vision and my micro focus, and kind of this dance in between the two. So like my macro vision would be like, where I want to go on a big scale, which is kind of this big vision that I'll actually never really achieve because as I get closer, it just gets bigger. So I'm kind of always chasing it. This big, big vision. And then the micro focus is literally just what do I need to do today to win this day? And then the goal is just to kind of stack the wins and stack the days, right? And it's kind of that dance in between. But when you know that big macro vision of why it actually matters, like to your point of like really that deep why, you're going to keep showing up. But then you have this micro focus of not letting yourself get overwhelmed by how far you are from that macro vision or that deep rooted why, because you're just focusing on stacking the wins. And then all of a sudden you're looking back and you're like, holy crap, I have stacked so many wins. Like, look at me go. Woo. And then you want to keep going.
I love that. That's awesome. That's such a great way to approach it all. And I definitely hope that people are listening intently right now because that was such great information.
Yay. Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
So right now with COVID happening, I've been seeing a lot of businesses having to pivot, right? From what they're currently offering, trying to figure out their direction. Maybe their current offering just no longer applies because we don't even know when we're getting back to normal. So to keep their businesses going, they have to change. So what are your thoughts on how to best approach a pivot?
Yeah. Ooh, that's such a good question. So I think what's really interesting is we're never going to go back to normal because we can't come back from this to what we used to be, right? So people are going to have completely different buying behaviors. They're going to have different interests. So I think what's really helpful when you're thinking about pivoting is thinking right now about the person that you're most excited to serve with your business, whether that's like an offer that you have or whatever it is that you have in your business, the product, the service that you're offering to that person. Who is that person? And knowing who he or she is, like really knowing who that person is, like that niche person. But then on top of that, thinking, what does that person need during this season from an emotional perspective? So, for example, I have a personal development community, and women that are part of this community need more than ever connection. Right. So I'm pivoting even within our community of offering more opportunities for connection. So bringing in different guest speakers, doing these like virtual happy hours and just like finding connection because the person that I'm most excited to serve, she's a growth-minded woman who wants to be connected to other growth-minded women. So when I think about her pain point right now during this season, she feels less connected because she's not doing her normal like social things, right? Because she's in her house. And she also feels this call that she wants to impact people. So that's why I started a podcast course because I was like, my like person that I want to serve, she's impact based. So she might have a podcast on her heart that she's wanted to start. And now that she's at home and she's starting to think, how can I make my mark here? Because the life that I had before, I actually don't want to go back to that life. I want to go back to a more fulfilled life. And one of the ways that I could do that could be from me getting my message out there. And a lot of times, especially right now, that's a lot of podcasts that are starting. So I essentially really thought about her. I name her Ashley. That's my target market. She's named Ashley and she works in marketing. And I think about her and I know so much about her. And I picture her every time that I record an episode on my podcast. And right now I'm like, that's the way that she's feeling. So what can I create to serve her? And I'm really intentional about thinking about that. And getting creative, asking your audience, like any type of audience. It doesn't mean you have to have a massive audience or social following to the entrepreneurs listening to this, but asking the people that you are connected with what they actually need, what their biggest pain point is. And then all you have to do as an entrepreneur is solve some problems. The bigger problems you solve, the more money you make. The more problems you solve, the more impact you make, right? Like, so that's really how I treat it with pivots is just thinking about the season and the pain points, the new pain points that my target market might have. And what tools do I have in my toolbox or what tools could I create that could help them get the life that they want or get whatever it is that's on their heart out into the world.
Yeah, that's so perfect. I love that. And I love that, a lot of people should be starting podcasts,
Yeah.
It's such a great way to connect with people that you normally wouldn't even come across. Like I've had guests from Australia, I've had guests from the States, I've had guests from across Canada. And it's such a great way to connect with these people and have like heart to heart conversations with them and, deepen that connection with your community that way. I think it's such a great idea.
And also like a lot of people think like, oh, podcasting is saturated or there's so many podcasts out there. And I'm like, what? Like your message hasn't been shared by you. Like you're the only person that has your unique experience. And I believe this is like, if I had to say I had a religion, this is my religion. I believe to my core that if you're gifted a vision for your life or a dream on your heart, that you're also gifted the ability to figure it out, which means you're gifted the resourcefulness, you're gifted the heart, you're gifted the grit, you're gifted the intelligence. You just have to get out of your own way and do it, because some people are not gifted visions that they want to be podcasters, but you and I were both gifted that. And we did something about it. And someone listening to this right now has a podcast on her heart. And I would say to you, person listening to this, you were gifted that vision because you're supposed to do this. So it's time to get out of your own way and go do it because you're qualified, and you're going to qualify yourself in the process of putting yourself out there, and someone needs to hear your message.
Mm-hmm. And I love that, even though I've had many guests on this podcast and I could ask them the exact same questions every time, the story is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their unique take and story to share. And even though, a podcast topic has already been done a billion times, it hasn't been done your way. It hasn't been shared in the way that you can share it.
Exactly. I love that so much. It's just so powerful to just step into just doing that thing that you feel called to do, knowing that someone out there is counting on you to do it too.
Totally. Now, I want to get personal with you a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to hear what your experience is like with harmony between work and life.
Yeah. So I think I've always had this idea that I would never have perfect balance, right? Like I didn't think that I would have this like harmony. Like I'm not really a harmonious type of person. Like I'm more like I don't know, like a white water, like rapid type of person. Like, so I never seeked out perfect balance because I don't, or this like harmonious life because I just don't feel called to that type of a life. So that's how I interpret the question of just like harmony and I think of like peaceful. Like I just kind of want to stir things up. Like I want to stir up the pot. So when I think about work and life together, I've always been really intentional about mapping out my priorities before my to-dos, because I don't want my priorities and the things that matter most to me and the people that matter most to me to become an afterthought when I'm living out other people's expectations of what I should be doing or other people's agendas. So I've always been very intentional about having a separate, like unplugged time where I'm super intentional about honoring my priorities, including like date night and time with girlfriends and things of that sort. But then also, I've been in seasons in my life where like I am in the zone working on a project or a deadline or something that I'm working towards. And like I feel very out of balance. And I love both because I love just the ebbs and flows of it all. And I don't want this like perfect flow. I want this like up and down where I love the spontaneity. I love structured spontaneity. So I've never seeked out this like harmonious balance between the two. I've known that everything would come in seasons, but I would always make time for the top priorities. And I'm getting really, really good at, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that feels really good.
I love that. Learning to say no to things that really don't just fire you up is just so important, because otherwise it just drains your energy.
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So since you have a different approach to harmony, I want to know what self-love means to you, especially being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. It means showing up as myself and getting better and better at being me. Because I think so often we're wearing all of these like masks, and the biggest gift of self-love is getting just so comfortable being the real truest version, like the person that you are when you're laughing with your best friend and you're just like so happy and fulfilled. Like I just want to keep showing up more and more as me. And that's the best gift that I can give to myself, is knowing that I'm enough and I'm worthy of success and I'm worthy of all of my big dreams. And it's how I'm showing up and being so unapologetic that is going to bring more fulfillment into my life and give other people the space and permission that they don't need from me. They need to give to themselves. But in the meantime, if they're not willing to give it to themselves yet, it gives them that permission to just be more themselves. And I can't think of a better way to feel more in love with me than just by being like, Kacia, you're freaking awesome how you are, and you're just going to keep getting better.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. All right, so we have some questions from the community before we end the interview.
Yeah.
And I want to ask them on their behalf, really, so that they can get to know you personally as well. So the very first question is, what is your morning routine like?
Ooh. So if you're familiar with Mel Robbins, she has a book called The 5 Second Rule. And if you haven't read the book, you can watch the TED Talk. It's really juicy. But essentially, when my alarm goes off, I am super weird and I 5 second rule myself out of bed. So I count down like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I launch myself out of my bed like I'm an actual rocket ship. I'm not even kidding. Yeah, you should definitely have a camera on the wall and see that. And then I go straight into, like, when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning and I'm in my bathroom, I'm priming myself to think about what I'm excited about for the day. Because so often, I don't think we're responsible for our first thought, but I think we're responsible for creating a second thought that serves us. So when you wake up in the morning and you say, I'm tired, that's okay. But the second thought has to be something better, because otherwise your brain kicks into self-confirming bias and you start looking for all the reasons why you're tired. So I instead ask myself, what am I excited about for the day? And then my brain starts to look for all of the things that I'm excited for the day. And then I work out within the first hour of waking up. And that is huge for me because Brennan Burchard has a quote that says, a power plant doesn't have energy, it generates energy. And I apply that to literally every aspect of my life, where I'm like, oh, if I want to crush today, I need to generate some energy. And often that comes from movement. So that's kind of 3 steps of my morning routine. I've tried journaling, I've tried meditating, and none of those things have stuck yet. So TBD.
Awesome. I love that. Second question is, what do you love and dislike the most about being an entrepreneur?
I love that I get to make my own rules. I am someone who just loves to be creative. I love just getting to design my own day. I love just all of that. The things that I don't love, I now outsource, which is things like my fiance Sina is our CFO, because I could probably never look at a spreadsheet again and be completely fine with my life. And our operations manager does all of the graphic design and things like that. So the things that I don't like are really details, and anything like financial, like anything that's in a spreadsheet. And it's funny because I come from a project management background. Maybe I just don't want to be in spreadsheets ever again. So if it involves being in a spreadsheet, or it involves like anything to do with colors, I'm out. Ideas, vision. I love speaking. I love connecting with people. I love sales. I love marketing. I love content creation, all of that. Give me all of that. And as soon as I could, I started outsourcing the things that I didn't like.
I love that. I love that you focus on what you love and you outsource everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, my boss once told me that, I was trying to really focus on bettering some skills that I felt like I sucked at. Math being included, I definitely suck at math. It's pretty pathetic. And he's like, no, 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 no. He's like, you don't work on bettering the skills that you need to improve. You work on the skills that you're already good at and you make them even better. And then you get other people to handle the stuff that you don't like doing and you're not good at.
Yes. I mean, that is the ultimate secret sauce to also being really freaking pumped. Because I get questions every single day on Instagram of like, why, how are you so energetic? How are you so, I'm like, I also am really intentional about the stuff that sucks my joy. As soon as I can, as soon as I got to the financial position that I could hire someone to start making graphics, I was like, take it away, girl. Like, take it away. So yeah, it's been really helpful for sure.
I love that. All right. So the last question is, what is on your reading list right now?
Ooh, I love the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. It is honestly, I think one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life. I also love The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. I love The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Oh my gosh, there's so many good books, but like Untamed by Glennon Doyle is like honestly so good. Everybody needs to read that book. It's so good. I'm trying to get her on my podcast. I've been sliding into her DMs. She's not responding yet, but we'll report back.
I'll get there. All right. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, where can they connect with you? And if you have any offerings that are available to anybody, like your podcast course or anything else, I'd love to hear about them so that everybody can hear about them as well.
Awesome. Thank you. This is so much fun. So my favorite social media platform is Instagram, and my handle is Kacia, Kacia .Fitzgerald. So come find me over there. My podcast is called Empower Her Podcast. I have a global personal development community. It's a membership community designed for women that want to connect and deep dive on personal growth content. I bring in cool experts. It's only $10 a month to be a member. And that's what I'm obsessed with right now, is creating the most massive global personal development community of go-getter women, not just entrepreneurs, but just growth-minded women. So that's the thing that I'm most excited about right now.
I love that so much. I'm definitely going to have to check that out because that sounds like...
It's right up your alley, girl.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much, Kacia, for taking the time to share your story and your incredible advice. I know that so many are going to benefit from this. It's going to help them navigate the entrepreneurial journey and find their true purpose, but also help them be able to achieve those goals that they're setting for themselves.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, girl.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.